still got a few people. I'm going to use that.
All right, no hurry. Yep. Not a run at all, exactly. You ended up by killing yourself. Almost ran off the road. Yeah, that was right ahead of that. That's what I'm opening with at UCA and Hendricks and them. They all lost teams left and right. Thursday, we got a Thursday game. I get beans for lunch on Thursday. We only have some Thursday. What happened to get this year? All on the road, they're like Harrison. They went on the road, lose at home. Luckily, we got them at home this week. Now, who would rather be a six? Yes, yeah, black armband.
Oh, yeah, the black
Yeah. He was right out here. I don't know where he went. I don't see him now.
If it doesn't fit mine, if you want to throw that out there, you
All
can.
right.
You ready to rock and roll?
Let's do it.
How fitting, it's the Alabama song.
Exactly.
Check, check, check. All right, check, check, check. We're going to go ahead and get started. Know there's some folks still getting food. Great to have you here today. We are so honored. You know, this is the 14th year of the Touchdown Club. I was talking to our guest speaker, Barrett Jones, today. He's spoken at different clubs, the old Birmingham Touchdown Club and Memphis, Mobile, different places. And you know, I told him today, I think marks of our 14 years and say 150 speakers, he's the youngest speaker we've ever had at 27 years old. Let's give it up for that. Like that. He set the bar. But I have to say, listen, today, if you're a Razorback fan or a Cowboy fan, you're dragging today. How cool is it that for the two first at the head table, the youngest speaker we've ever had, and the first time I believe we've ever had soon-to-be spouse, a fiancé, sit at the head table with a speaker. Let's welcome his fiancée, Katie Hall. Thank you, Katie. Katie will be singing the national anthem here in a few minutes before we begin. Great to have Barrett here. I can't wait to hear one of the most decorated players in the unbelievable history of college football. We have him here today, and looking forward to hear from him. Gary, will you come up and lead us in a word of prayer, please? Some of us really need it today. Oh, hold on. Oh, yeah. By the way, if you were waiting for food, I think we're restocked back there. So if you want to sneak away while Gary's praying, you can do that, or you can pray and then do that.
If you wondered if Barrett's a winner, take a look. Right there. He's obviously a winner. My phone number is 831-3637. If you want to text me what we should be praying about, I'd like to hear it. I had somebody tell me a few minutes ago that my prayer ought to be that we show better than Ole Miss did. But I don't know. That doesn't sound too good to me. So let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you so much just for the goodness, all the things that you have done for us, the way that you provide for us, the way that you take care of us in every area of our life. Lord, we just ask you to bless this food, to give us strength to serve you today. And we thank you so much for your Son. In his name we pray. Amen.
Thanks, Gary. I mentioned looking forward to hearing Barrett today. I thought Dari Noka did a great job last week. Do you agree with that? I thought he was... Barrett, I'm telling you, he held no punches as a guy who, and Barrett's been doing some work for the SEC Network and ESPN Radio, and so, I was surprised as a media guy. He really brought it, so we expect the same thing from you today. No pressure or anything. And also, next week, Bob Stoops comes to speak to the Touchdown Club. I know there are a lot of folks here in this area that are Bob Stoops fans and are Oklahoma fans, although it's a tough week to be a Sooner this week, too. Yes, more Bob Stoops fans this week. That's right. So make sure you RSVP for that meeting next week. Blake Anderson after that. That's October 23rd. And for those of you who missed it last week, October 30th, our Southwest Conference Hall of Fame inductees, Freddie Marshall, who's a member of this club. We see him quite often. Joe Ferguson, Dennis Winston, Ron Brewer, Darrell Walker, Amber Sherry, Edric Floreal in track and field, Cynthia Moore, track and field. And then posthumously, we're going to honor Steve Little, Ronnie Cavendish, Jim Benton, Billy Ray Smith Sr., Ware Schoonover, and Orville Henry. Now, Jim, you were back in the day of Ware Schoonover, right? You remember him as a player, is that right? 1930 listen, right on the spot, 1929. How about that? All right, so that will be, make sure and go ahead and make your RSVPs for those meetings if you could. If I just heard a phone go off. Who did it? Raise your hand. That's okay. That's all right. We won't bust you out. If you can, before you turn that off, if you've got somebody that's got a young student, young college student, you're looking at the #1 academic athlete in America here a few years ago, and I think he'd be a great one to say, hey, listen, Johnny, Davis, Susie, listen, I want you to listen to the Touchdown Club. So you can go to lrtouchdown.com to watch this live stream, the Touchdown Club Facebook page, or the Touchdown Club app that Farm Bureau of Pulaski County is sponsored. So make sure and do that, and then either mute your phone or turn it off if you could. Do want to thank our great sponsors, Twin City Limousine, Dale Bennett, Greg Hatcher. Boy, Lane Hatcher did it again. We have Kevin Kelly over there. I'll mention him in just a minute. But thank you to Greg and Dale for great work with the Twin City Limousine Company that picks up all of our speakers. LRCVB, we're proud to be called the Little Rock Touchdown Club. Thank you to them. CJRW, Mark Raines, Dan Sawyer, Darren Gray, full-service marketing communication firm. If you need some help advertising, PR work, you name it, CJRW is the group to go to. 103.7 The Buzz, Justin Akery and Pat Bradley interviewed. Were they okay, Barrett, a few minutes ago? Were they okay? Pretty easy on you, not too bad? Great to have them there every week. I see Steve Johnson's back again. Steve, great to have you back, and I always like to have you here. Arkansas Urology, thank you so much, Scott Davis, for your leadership there. 8 locations, 17 physicians. Go get your checkup once a year. Do not hesitate to do that. We're really proud that they are here, and they're also sponsoring our Buzz broadcast outside in the lobby. War Memorial Stadium, if you want a neat location for a meeting or a party, make sure and call Ron Sally, the new manager over there, or John Latch, the assistant manager. Farm Bureau, Pulaski County, Shauna Hopper, Stephen Reichert, Todd Dennis, thanks so much. Todd, great job on the weight loss. I see it. I've spotted it right off the bat. Did I not? Did I? I did. See, for some reason, I noticed those things, haircuts and loss of weight. So I don't know why. It started back when I was in the gym business. But thank you for your sponsorship for Home, Auto, Life, or others. Make sure and get those guys to give you a quota at Farm Bureau of Pulaski County. Dairy Queen of Arkansas, Blake Lively, Nelson Lively, Todd Denton. Don't forget to go by their second store over here on University and 12th Street. The blizzards are outstanding there. I will say I've tried. a few of those. Jim Wealth Financial Advisors. Great to see Scott Inman over. Where's Scott at? Great to see Scott over in Columbia. I get to see him at all the Razorback games because you're still doing the pregame show. If you got any questions about retirement, investments, you can see Scott, John Shrewsbury, Janet Walker. GetReadyForTheFuture.com is their website. Make sure and take advantage of their sponsorship. The Big Red stores. Where my Big Red gang at? Where are they at? Did you guys open number 36 this past Friday? All right. Well, so congratulations. They've been in business for 20 years. Store 37 coming around the corner anytime soon? Maumelle, you've already picked it out. All right. Well, thanks to the David and Doug Hendricks and his family at Big Red Stores for being a great sponsor of the Touchdown Club. Judy Henry, I know, is here today. Judy, Wright, Lindsay, and Jennings, law firm that's been around 116 years. I was asked about my lawsuit, and I haven't talked about it, but I see light at the end of the tunnel. I see it. I see it. Where's Judy? I see it coming. It's coming. And we're going to have some kind of celebration here on some Monday at the Touchdown Club. Whether it's this year, next year, there's going to be a celebration. I may just speak myself that day on overcoming and winning. But I can't say enough about Wright, Lindsay, and Jennings, premier law firm here in Arkansas. And Judy's been outstanding. If you've got a legal issue, I'm telling you, trust those folks with your legal issue. They can help you out. Crane Automotive, Larry Crane, Chris Crane, Drew Dees. Where's my Crane guys? I heard Drew is in Scotland. So business must be good. Go by and see the folks at Crane and tell them you want a good deal. 17 dealerships across Arkansas. They're outstanding. The Democrat Gazette is our sponsor, has been from year one. Wally Halls. Wally's going to be on Feinbaum today. I wanted to mention that. So, you know what time you're going to be on, Wally? 3:30 Central. Wally has not been on Feinbaum in, 12 years? About that. So I look forward to hearing what Wally's going to say. We had him on the buzz today and appreciate his support of the Touchdown Club, and Amanda Copley as well for all Arkansas Preps Player of the Week we're going to mention in just a minute. And finally, our presenting sponsor, Simmons Bank. We've got two flanking Simmons Bank personnel today. To my left, Richard Johnson, Senior Vice President of Wealth Management. Also, the current president of the Arkansas Sports Hall of Fame. Does a great job, very passionate for the state of Arkansas. To my right, at the very end of the table, Garland Reitenauer. And now, I want to make sure Garland get this last name. Reitenauer? Now, Garland, Vice President of Special Assets, I did not realize this. You were a wingback on the 1964 National Championship for the Razorbacks. Is that correct? Well, that's worth a round of applause right there. You know, I know Barrett Jones is up here, and he's got 3 rings. He had 3 rings in his one career, and we've got our one national championship in 64. But thank you, Garland. Thank you, Richard, and thanks Simmons Bank for their great support. It is Columbus Day. So the bank is off today, except for you two guys, and I appreciate you being here, and couldn't do it without Simmons Bank. Could not do it without. So let's give Simmons and all of our great sponsors a round of applause. Do you want to thank the fine folks here at the Embassy Suites? Matt Johnson, who's doing our live stream and audiovisual work back there in the back, Local Fidelity 6. Dwayne Duncan, who handles all of our photography right there, he's the man. R.J. Hawk, I don't know if he's back yet from having his baby, but I know he's doing social media online for us, so we appreciate R.J. At LR Touchdown Club is our Twitter account if you want to follow that, or as I mentioned, website, lrtouchdown.com. Our wonderful check-in ladies back in the back who do this for free every week. They get here early. Ann Jansen, Wes Sutton, Clint Albright, all of our board members, all these guys who set up here. It's a teamwork effort. So let's give all of them and Debbie Wyman, our executive director, a round of applause for great work. It is time for our All Arkansas Preps Player of the Week, sponsored by the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. He's got one of the most unique pronounced names we've ever had at the Touchdown Club. He's got a Z in his name, and it looks a little bit like Cesar, but it's Cesar. Cesar Warren is a senior running back at Joe T. Robinson. 2 weeks ago, he rushed for 255 yards on 25 carries. That's 10 yards every time he touched the ball, and 2 touchdowns in Robinson's 21-17 victory over Arkadelphia. Had runs of 57 and 59 yards. And then this past week, he rushed for 211 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a 34-27 win, Coach? What is it? 34-10 win over Nashville. So this young man is putting up some stats. So let's give him a Touchdown Club welcome. Cesar Warren. Great to have him today. He's a good-looking athlete. Great to have his mom, Cynthia Henderson, here today. His adopted parents, Michelle and Chuck Bill. His head coach, Todd Escola. And this may be a first. This young man wanted to bring 2 of his linemen because they graded out the highest blocking for him. You got Matthew, Howard and Taylor Chastain. Let's give all of them a big round of applause for being here. Cynthia, I know you're proud of him. He's a good-looking and fine young man, and I think he's going to continue to play well the rest of the year. And great to have Michelle and Chuck Bill here. Chuck leads, and his wife lead the FCA effort here in Central Arkansas and do a great job with FCA for sure. Love you guys, and great to have you, Coach Escola. Congratulations on the success. Boy, have you seen how impressive the facilities look at Robinson lately? Wow. All right, we have a lot of ups and downs in college football. Please welcome Rex Nelson for the recap, everybody.
Thanks, David. David, I'm beginning to think RJ had that baby himself as much as he's been missing lately. I keep saying RJ had a baby. I'm thinking he's being legitimate here as much as he's been out. Wally, I'm impressed that you're going to be on Feinbaum this afternoon. Just think about it, folks. Wally Hall's voice is going to be booming through every trailer park in the 11 states of the old Confederacy. All at the same time. As Barrett knows, if you listen to Feinbaum, every other call has to end, every other call at least has to end the same way, and that's Paul. That's 3 syllables, by the way. I got just one more thing to say. Roll damn Tide. Every other call ends that way. You know, I'm not sure where to start today, so you know what? I'm going to start with the UCA Bears. How's that? Yeah. You know, here we are nearing the halfway point of the college football season. We only have, after Tech and Ouachita got upset Saturday, we only have 2 one-loss teams. We don't have any undefeated teams in the state, and they're both in Conway, Hendrix and UCA. So we'll start with UCA. Bears moved to 4-1 overall, 3-0 in the conference with a 27-7 victory at Houston Baptist, which falls to 1-4 and 0-3 in conference. And there was no hangover after that big win over Sam Houston State the previous week. Senior quarterback Hayden Hildebrand was 19 of 30 passing, 293 yards and 2 touchdowns. Now, back on Wednesday night, seems like a long time ago now, Arkansas State went to 2-2 overall, 1-0 in the conference, more importantly, with a 43-25 win at Georgia Southern, which falls to 0-4 and 0-1. Red Wolves came up with 4 interceptions in that game and a fumble recovery. Receiver Chris Murray led them with 5 receptions for 188 yards and 2 touchdowns. UAPB fell to 2-4 overall, 1-2 in the SWAC, 38-31 loss in Pine Bluff to Mississippi Valley State. This was a bad loss, Ron. The Delta Devils came in at 0-4, and they had lost 15 of their previous 16 games. But they beat UAPB for second year in a row. Great American Conference, I can't figure it out. As I mentioned, UAM upsets Arkansas Tech. Harding upsets Ouachita. So now you have Tech, Ouachita, and SAU all at 4-2. You have UAM, Harding, and Henderson all at 3-3. Parity reigns among the Arkansas school. Harding started 0-3 after going 11-0 in the regular season last year, but they're now 3-3 with 3 consecutive victories. They come to Arkadelphia. They upset Ouachita on its homecoming 31-28. Difference proved to be a 50-yard field goal by Harding's Tristan Parsley. Tech started 4-0. They're going just the opposite direction of Harding. They're now 4-2. They had moved up to number 11 in the country, but they have now lost 2 consecutive games. Wonder Boys led UAM by 10 points in the 4th quarter, but Cole Sears threw a TD pass with 8:43 left. He then scored on a 10-yard touchdown run with 1:44 left. Bo Weevils win a wild one, 46-45. Henderson still has the nation's longest road winning streak. That's in all NCAA divisions. 29 consecutive road games they've won. That's even though they've lost 4 consecutive home games. I can't figure it out. Henderson was at 0-5, Oklahoma Baptist, Gary's alma mater. Oklahoma Baptist is 0-5. The Bison score with 10 seconds left to pull within 1 of Henderson. So all they need is an extra point to send it to overtime. They call a fake extra point. And the pass fails. Henderson wins by 1, 14-13. So the streak lives on. And SAU beats 3-3 Southern Nazarene 27-15 as their good quarterback, Barrett, that's a good football name, isn't it? Renner completes 21 of 34 passes for 250 yards. NCAA Division III, I mentioned, Hendricks now 5-1, 3-1 in the conference. 42-24 victory in Conway over Birmingham Southern. Southern falls to 1-4, 0-3 in the conference. They have a good quarterback this year. Miles Thompson, 373 total yards for Hendricks, 262 passing, 111 rushing. NAI line falls to 3-4 overall, 1-3 with the 56-17 loss at Arizona Christian. Okay, I've held off as long as I can, David. On to the SEC. South Carolina 48, Arkansas 22. Arkansas actually came in, as you know, as a 3-point favorite. The 2-3 Razorbacks are now 0-2 in the SEC for the fourth time in Brett Bielema's 5 seasons as head coach. They are also now 0-16 in the Bielema era when trailing at the half. 3 defensive touchdowns for the Gamecocks. Gamecocks moved to 4-2 overall, 2-2 in the conference. South Carolina, one of the differences, won the turnover battle 4-0. Arkansas has now lost its past 5 games to Power 5 teams. Meanwhile, South Carolina snapped a losing streak of 7 games to SEC West teams. It was the highest point total for South Carolina against a Power 5 team since a victory over, yes, Arkansas in 2013. To quote Coach Bielema on the third quarter, it was probably one of the most frustrating quarters I've ever been involved with. It just seemed everything disintegrated right in front of us. Kind of like part of my meal today. It just kind of disintegrated right in front of me. So that's the quote of the day. We'll move on. Alabama moves to 6-0, 3-0 in the conference, 27-19 over Texas A&M in College Stations. Aggies were 26.5-point underdogs. So Nick will have plenty to fire the troops up over today. They fought a 4-2 overall, 2-1 in the conference. Alabama, you'll remember, won its first 2 SEC games by a combined 125-3. Kellen Mond did pass for 237 yards and a losing cause for the Aggies. Auburn off to a good start. Off to a 5-1 start, in fact. 3-0 in the SEC as Gus gets off the hot seat. 44-23 over Ole Miss. Rebels fall to 2-3 overall, 0-2 in the conference. Kerryon Johnson rushes for a career-high 204 yards and 3 touchdowns for Auburn. Third consecutive blowout victory for Auburn over an SEC foe. Tigers led this one. It was a laugher, 35-3 at halftime. Ole Miss on consecutive weeks, get this, and you know it could be worse then, Ole Miss lost its 2 games in the state of Alabama by a combined 110-26. Those are on back-to-back weeks. Georgia playing well, 6-0 overall, 3-0 in conference, 45-14 win at Vanderbilt. Vandy falls to 3-3 overall, but 0-3 in conference. Nick Chubb, 138 yards rushing, 2 TDs. Georgia's best start since 2005. Vanderbilt, you might remember, had beaten them last year, 17-16, but Georgia made it look easy this year. And how about our man Coach O and LSU, back from the dead, right? A week, it still sounds like he's dead, but he's back from the dead. A week after the loss to Troy in Baton Rouge, the Tigers go to Florida. They win 17-16. LSU's now 4-2 overall, 1-1 in conference. Florida falls to 3-2 overall, 1-1 in the conference. Florida was 13-1 at home under Jim McElwain coming into that game, but they lose to a wounded Tiger on Saturday. Kentucky is 5-1 overall, 2-1 in conference, 40-34 over Missouri. Tigers fall to 1-4 overall, 0-3 in the conference. So this week, Arkansas and Alabama, Auburn at LSU, Texas A&M at Florida, Missouri at Georgia, Vanderbilt at Ole Miss, BYU at Mississippi State, and South Carolina at Tennessee. Here in the state, just 3 games. Coastal Carolina is at Arkansas State. They play Arkansas and Arkansas State this year. Coastal Carolina at Arkansas State, Stephen F. Austin at UCA, and Central State at UAPB. So games in Jonesboro, Conway, and Pine Bluff. Get out and see a college football game. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Rex. A couple things real quick. Just got a text that the great Y.A. Tittle just passed away. 90 years old. What is the connection? What bowl game did Y.A. Tittle play against the Razorbacks? And what was its nickname? The Ice Bowl. And who did they play in the Ice Bowl? LSU. Y.A. Tittle. Yeah, great name.
What's his name? What does the YA stand for?
Only Jim knows Y.A. Tittle's name. What does Y.A. stand for?
Yale Burton Abraham.
Yale Burton Abraham. There you go. Only Jim would know that. But yes, he passed away at age 90. All right. I know this. Who was the great player that it was between Y.A. Tittle for LSU? Clyde Scott. Clyde Smackover Scott. Do you know his family's name? I'm just joking there. Yeah, that was a great game, but the great Y.A. Tittle did it at age 90. I did want to make mention, speaking of history, we got Barrett Jones from Alabama. We have a young lady here. Her name is Diane Wood. She attended Alabama with Joe Namath, but here's the interesting, where's Diane at? I want you to stand real quick. Stand up, Diane, real quick. Her father was a freshman at Alabama in 1926 and rode the train, was it Wallace Wade? I believe it was Wallace Wade, to the Rose Bowl and won Alabama's first national championship in 1926. He was from 1926 to 1930. How cool is that? She doesn't know if he played very much, but he told her the story about him on the train, and I think he crossed over with Bear Bryant a little bit. But let's give her a round of applause for being a great Alabama alumni. Do you want to make mention Kevin Kelly, Chris Peterson over here from PA? She's a Razorback now. Thank you. You sure about that? All right. You can switch back after this week if you want to. I want to mention Kevin Kelly, Chris Peterson, one of the epic games. I mentioned Todd Escola and Robinson here doing a great job over there. And what an epic game that was. 86-52, maybe one of the highest scoring games in the history of high school sports. So congratulations for the win, fellas. Always great to have you here. Yes, welcome them real quick. Before we introduce Barrett, I found out, Barrett, I know why now that you listen. You were academic All-American, on the football field All-American, did everything right, so you didn't have time to play golf much, I understand. So Kevin Crash told me that he took you to Alotian yesterday, and he said you bogeyed 15, 16, and 18 to finish it 3 over. So you know what? That's what you're supposed to do if you're an All-American. You didn't have time. Oh, that's true. Oh, so your 3 over is pretty good. I didn't catch that, I guess. I wasn't paying attention. I was just paying attention that you bogeyed 3 out of the last 4 holes. But what an amazing guy here. The thing I respect so much about Barrett, listen to this. You want to hear something amazing? He made 3 trips to the White House. Not 1, 3 as a national champion at Alabama. Jim will give most of the details and all of his stats and all of his awards, but the award he's not going to mention, I think is most significant, or one of the most, is the William Campbell Trophy. And that is a trophy that's given to one player nationally that combines academics, combines community service. It is the academic Heisman. So when you hear all the things that Jim mentions, which are off the chart, All-American, National Championship, also remember this guy was a blazer in the classroom and in the community. And, boy, I have a lot of respect for that. So we appreciate you squeezing us into your schedule. Jim, will you come up and give the formal introduction of our guest speaker today? Jim Rasco, everybody.
Okay, here we go. And Barrett's so young, as David mentioned. For history on him, I've had to go back and research some of his ancestors instead of, see, he's too young to have a history. His grandfather, Bill Jones, was a basketball coach and later athletic director at the University of North Alabama, that's in Florence, Alabama, and he won a Division II national championship in basketball. Barrett's ties to the University of Alabama go way, way back. January 1, 1945, it's Alabama versus Duke in the 11th Annual Sugar Bowl in New Orleans. Our speakers, we're going to have to call him a distant cousin. Ralph Jones, a tall 200-pound end from Florence, Alabama, caught a 40-yard pass to set up an Alabama touchdown the first quarter, then caught a 12-yard pass for Alabama's third touchdown to give the Tide a 19-7 lead in the second quarter. For full disclosure, I will state that Duke came back to score a touchdown the final minute of the game to defeat Alabama 29-26. Now let's jump to our speaker's father, Rex Jones. He had played in the Alabama High School All-Star basketball game with a fellow you've heard of named Charles Barkley and still stays in touch with Charles. Rex went on to be a 3-year letterman for the University of Alabama's basketball team in the early 1980s under head coach Wimp Sanderson. And as all of you know, Wimp later served as head coach of the UALR Trojans for 5 seasons. I first found Barrett Jones in the news when he was a 15-year-old 10th grader, playing basketball for Evangelica Christian High School in Cordova, Tennessee, which is just outside Memphis. Barrett was listed as a 6-foot 5-inch post player, averaging 7 points a game. Let's turn to football. Barrett missed half his junior year in high school with a torn labrum. That's in his left shoulder. However, weighing 270 pounds, running the 40 and 4.9, and bench pressing 355 pounds, in the summer before his senior year, he had already visited 7 SEC schools, including Alabama and Arkansas, and received 22 offers at that point. In October of 2007, both Rivals.com and Scout.com listed Barrett Jones as the #1 high school football player in the state of Tennessee. In November, Jones committed to Nick Saban in the University of Alabama. In addition to being All-State, Barrett was selected to play in the U.S. Army All-American Bowl High School All-Star Game. One interesting note that I'll add is that Barrett grew up a neighbor of super agent Jimmy Sexton, who was a friend of Barrett's father. So when Barrett was a young boy, he had already met Sexton's client, Nick Saban, who would later recruit Barrett. On September the 20th, 2008, Alabama played its SEC season opener at Fayetteville against the Razorbacks. True freshman Barrett Jones played left tackle. However, Barrett spent most of the season with his right arm in a sling due to a shoulder injury. He had surgery in December and was granted a medical hardship for 2008, so that made him a rare player to have played as an opponent in Fayetteville in 2008, 2010, and 2012. Okay, the surgery must have been successful because Alabama's spring game in April of 2009, the coaching staff gave the I Like to Practice award to Barrett Jones. Just before the 2009 season started, I found the following quote in the Anniston, Alabama newspaper. Barrett Jones, a redshirt freshman, emerged as a starter at right guard following a big preseason. His physical abilities are rivaled only by his supreme intelligence. Okay, now I'll fast forward through his 4 seasons as a starting offensive lineman at Alabama and mention just some of his major awards. 2009, named Freshman All-American Team, Alabama went 14-0, won the national championship by defeating Notre Dame 37-21 in the Rose Bowl. March 2010, a quote from the Montgomery newspaper, Barrett Jones won't get much of a vacation during next week's spring break. Jones is joining a mission group out of Memphis and will help in the recovery efforts in Haiti. 2010 season, again played right guard. First team All-SEC, academic All-America. Alabama went 10-3, including beating Michigan State 49-7 in the Citrus Bowl in Orlando. In August of 2011, now this is before his junior year of eligibility, Barrett graduated with an accounting degree and a perfect 4.0 grade point. 2011 season, as a junior, he moved to left tackle, unanimous All-American, Outland Trophy is the nation's top interior lineman, and Alabama won the BCS National Championship game by defeating LSU 21-0 in the championship game. March 2012, after spending the past 2 spring breaks on mission trips to Haiti, Barrett organized a trip for 31 people to Nicaragua, which is the second poorest country in the hemisphere behind only Haiti. 2012 season, as a senior, he moved to center, repeated as All-American, won the Remington Award as the nation's top college center. Alabama went 11-1 during the regular season, then defeated Georgia 32-28 in the SEC championship game. And then later that month, Barrett was voted one of the 3 permanent team captains by his Alabama teammates. Then on January the 7th, 2013, Alabama defeated Notre Dame 41-14 for their 3rd BCS national championship in Barrett's 4 seasons. In closing, I will add that just before that championship game, Barrett received his master's degree in accounting, maintaining a perfect 4.0 GPA. So on a personal note, I'll tell Barrett and Katie that I have a CPA firm here in Little Rock, and if this TV stuff doesn't work out, my firm's always looking for good accountants. Dr. Moore, we need somebody to do your tax return, right? I'm going to retire someday. Okay, so from the University of Alabama at center, number 57, the captain of the Crimson Tide, Barrett Jones.
That was fantastic. I've had a lot of introductions. I've never had one quite like that. I think I should come out in full disclosure to start that I think Ralph Jones, the 1945 guy, is just about as much my cousin as Julio Jones. Because I've never heard of Ralph Jones. So, hey. Yeah, well, it could be. Uncle Ralph, I'll have to ask my dad about Uncle Ralph. Oh, that's good. Well, it's great to be here. Man, it's a few opening comments. Diane, I got to tell you, you have aged much better than Joe Namath. You look good. She also, y'all should know, Diane has been a sleeper agent for Alabama many years now. She's over here hanging out with the Razorbacks, and says, if you want to come play running back somewhere, man, I know a pretty good school who's has some good running backs. But well, hey, I'm glad to be here. I'm so thankful so many of you guys turned out. I want to get just an initial quick poll. Do we have any Alabama fans in the house? We got any brave Alabama fans? Wow, literally not one. Okay, good. Thanks, Katie. That's why I brought her. All right, good. Well, I don't think I've ever actually spoken anywhere where there was not one person that raised their hand at that question. So is it all Arkansas? We got all Arkansas fans? There we go. All right. That's great. That's great. Well, I just want to start by, maybe delivering some positives about Arkansas. I know you guys. I know it's a tough week. I think I'm only 27. Like I said, the youngest speaker ever. I don't know if that's a good thing. But I think I am old enough to know that the SEC is very cyclical, and I'm trying to be very kind and polite, when Alabama's on top, so that you guys will hopefully do the same to me, because I understand that we'll be there someday. And I know it's been really tough these past few weeks and disappointing, I'm sure. But I just want to tell you guys a few positives that I know about Arkansas. First of all, I think for a long time, all I knew about Arkansas was when I would drive to St. Louis on I-55. I thought it was about the flattest state I'd ever seen. I also thought, I don't know if you guys realize this, but I think there are more bugs per capita in Arkansas. I've been telling you, when I drive through Arkansas, I have to wipe my windshield off 4 or 5 times. But then I, for the first time, came to West Arkansas when I played for Alabama, and we landed there at Millionaire. You guys probably have seen that, the FBO there. And man, Arkansas is beautiful. It's an absolutely beautiful state. I always love playing there, and I sometimes I say that to people. I think I'm being sarcastic, but I'm really not. I love playing in Arkansas. It's a fantastic stadium. The fans are great. I think a lot of people don't. Y'all are kind of like a really well-kept secret about how much you guys love the Razorbacks. I mean, people really are passionate about Arkansas football, and that's what I love about the SEC is the passionate fan bases, the passion and the energy that goes into it. So every time we came to Arkansas, it was always a passionate, excited fan base, even though it wasn't always like that when we left. But at least at the beginning, sorry, that's my only shot for the day. But at the beginning, it was always like that. And no, seriously, it's just an absolute beautiful state. Big thanks to Kevin Kraft for letting me play Alotian with him yesterday. That's one of the best golf courses. That's the best golf course I've ever played. You guys have a lot going on with that. And I just got to tell you, one of my favorite football games I ever played in was 2010 Arkansas and Alabama. Anybody ever was there at that game? We got a few. And that was a great football game. That was a really good game. Y'all should have beaten us that day, really. Y'all outplayed us in a lot of ways, and we came back and won at the end. And but that I always will remember that game fondly. That we are up 20-7, I think. We were panicking over there. 2010. That was probably the most talented team I was ever on. I'll probably get into that later. But you guys really had our number that day. But I want to start by, so what I want to do is spend a lot of the time up here today. I want to take your questions. I want to hear what you guys have to say about Arkansas, the SEC. I'm sure we'll get into that afterwards of just kind of, I'm sure that will come up, with the Arkansas and the state of everything. But I want to start by just kind of telling you guys part of my story. I want to tell you kind of how I got to be standing up here, sort of, how I got to Alabama, a lot of different parts of my story. So I was born in Memphis, Tennessee. I've lived there my entire life. My whole family is from Alabama. Both my parents grew up in Florence, Alabama. But I was born in Memphis, born and raised. I had 2 great parents, Rex and Leslie Jones. and my dad played basketball at Alabama. So growing up, I always wanted to be a basketball player. You know, I was talking on the radio with those guys earlier. A lot of offensive linemen, I think, always want to be athletic. You know, they want to kind of have that feeling. So I loved basketball. I wanted to feel like an athlete. So I really wanted to be a good basketball player. But I was a really slow starter. So if you got kids and they're really slow starters, take courage. It's okay. I was the tallest kid in my entire basketball league in the 3rd grade by 8 inches. And I grew really early, and I didn't score a single point the whole season. So just really let that sink in for a second. How bad of an athlete I was. It was a very rocky start. My dad, I have 2 brothers, so it was a family of basically 4 boys because my dad's basically a kid too. And I think my dad actually had kind of given up hope and sort of moved on and saw, well, at least I have 2 more chances to have a good athlete in the family, because the first one is a dud. I was really, I was one of those kids that could not even walk without falling down. But it kind of caught up with me, and I finally got to be a pretty good athlete and started excelling at sports, and excelled kind of at basketball first, and kind of had this realization at some point that I was a 6'5" center with a 4-inch vertical. And so that probably if I wanted to play football, if I wanted to play a sport in college, it was probably going to be football. And the reason I wanted to play so bad was partially because I love sports, but also partially because when I was in like the 5th grade, my dad jokingly told me that if I got a college scholarship, he would buy me any car I wanted. So I was like, well, I got to figure out some way to get a college scholarship, And so football was kind of the thing I decided to do. I was like, all right, and again, first I wanted to be an athlete. I was begging the coaches, like, please, let me play tight end, let me play linebacker, let me do anything but offensive line. I don't think a whole lot of people grow up dreaming about being offensive linemen. It just kind of happens to be that way. But no, I got put at the offensive line. I was always over the weight limit. I could never carry the ball, when I was young. But I got put at offensive line. And so the first thing I did when I really decided I wanted to start getting recruited was I called my next door neighbor, who he said was Jimmy Sexton. He's a longtime family friend of ours, great guy. Literally, sometimes you say next door neighbor, but you really mean somebody that lives in your same neighborhood. He literally lives in the house next door to me, has pretty much my entire life, and so since I was 5. And so I called him and said, hey, Jimmy, like, if I want to be a college athlete, like, what should I do? Like, how do I even start getting recruited? How does that work? And he told me, he said, you need to go to some camps. You need to sign up for these summer camps, and you need to go. So I said, great, I'll do it. So I signed up, got online, read all the materials. I signed up for Alabama. Obviously, I signed up for Auburn, and I signed up for Tennessee. I said, I'll go to 3 camps. I'll kind of find out. This was after my sophomore year of high school. So my freshman year, I'd played a little bit, but I went to kind of a smaller private school, Evangelical Christian School, ECS, which side note, we actually were the team that played Michael Orr's team in the state championship. And so I actually played against Michael Orr my freshman year. He was a senior. I played defensive end the whole game against him, and he absolutely dominated me. But so, I just got known my sophomore season. I started as a sophomore, but I really had no idea if I was any good at football. I knew I was good for my league, but it's just kind of tough to know if you're actually a prospect. And so I went to these camps, wasn't sure what to expect, and the first camp I ever went to was Auburn. Now, normally, this is a really refreshing environment for me because I normally can't tell this story because a lot of Alabama fans get, triggered by Auburn stuff. But I feel like this is a safe space for me to kind of talk about this Auburn story a little bit because I gotta be real honest with you guys, and Alabama fans don't like to hear this, but I did not grow up hating Auburn. I grew up in Memphis. I didn't really get it. It's Auburn. It's a bizarre rivalry, and I'm sure you guys have heard all about it. I mean, literally, like when you get to kindergarten, they make you pick like who you're rooting for, and they divide you up in your classroom of Alabama fans and Auburn fans, to kind of avoid the fighting. But I don't know. I liked Alabama, but I just never had that hate for Auburn. Which I guess is being taped, but oh well. That came later. That came later. So I still, even my first few years, didn't really hate Auburn. That all changed in 2010 when Cam Newton came to town, and we were up 24-0, and we came back. We lost 28-27. Maybe some of you remember that game. And Cam Newton came over, covered his mouth, and was pointing at us and laughing. And that's when I found I get it. I hate these guys. Yeah, that was, it's, oh man, I still get mad thinking about it. But anyway, so I went down to Auburn, and my dad, I had a great dad. He went to Alabama, like I told you, but he said, Barrett, I want to support you in everything you're doing, so here's what I'll do. All right, I will schedule a trip to the beach, you know, if you're from Memphis, Auburn's kind of on the way to the beach. He said, I will drop you off on the way to the beach because I'm not going to make a special trip to go down to Auburn. But as we're passing by the exit, if you want to get out of the car and go to Auburn, that's fine. So literally, you know, we went to Auburn, and Dad never put the car in park. He just kind of put it in neutral and let me hop out and grab my pads and everything. And you know, I went to like a 3-day camp at Auburn, and I stayed there at this 3-day camp. Anyway, so you know, had a pretty good camp. Like I again didn't know what to expect. Kind of won a bunch of my one-on-one reps. And at the end of the camp, one of the coaches, his name was Terry Price. He came up to me and said, "Hey, Barrett, you know, Coach Tuberville, Tommy Tuberville was the coach at the time. He said, Coach Tuberville would love to meet you and your family after the camp's over." And so again, I had no clue how it all worked. And so I said, "Great, you know, this must be pretty standard. This is how it works. You get to meet the coach, you know, take a picture or something like that." And you know, so I said, "Great." So I called my dad and I said, "Dad, I got some bad news. You're going to have to park the car at Auburn. You got to come in. You got to meet Tommy Tuberville." And so Dad, again, he was very supportive. He said, "You know, all right, I'll do it for you, son." And so both my parents came into Tommy Tuberville's office. And this is going to be kind of a throwback, but at the time they had beaten Alabama 4 straight times. And all their memorabilia said "Fear the Thumb," because it was like they were about to beat us for the 5th straight time. And so I walk in there, and everything says "Fear the Thumb," you know, "Fear the Thumb." They're about to beat us 5 straight times. But honestly, I could care less. I was so jacked and excited, and here I am sitting in Tommy Tuberville's office. You know, I again thought I was a basketball player in my head, and I'm talking to Tommy Tuberville one-on-one with my family, or not one-on-one, but just him with my entire family. And Tommy Tuberville looks at me and says, "Hey, you know, our coaches really like you. You had a fantastic camp. You know, we'd like to offer you a full scholarship to come play at Auburn." And that honestly changed my life right there. I mean, I didn't expect that. I had no clue how the whole process worked. I remember asking him, I felt like an idiot. I was like, "So you're offering me a full scholarship?" I was like, "Can you write that down somewhere?" Because how can I be sure, you know? I didn't understand how the whole process worked. And, you know, he said, "Well, I mean, we can't actually formally do it till a certain date, you know, but we want to offer you." And so, you know, after that, you know, I went to the other camps, went to Alabama, went to Tennessee, and I honestly wasn't in love with Alabama. Mike Shula was still there, and I didn't really feel like they were going to be great, and I ended up going to a lot of different schools. I like to say to my Alabama crowd, they like this joke. I say, you know, I use the Auburn offer to leverage for some other offers I actually wanted. You know, so I went and I got a bunch of offers, and I really didn't know where I was going to go to school. And I really was approaching it objectively. I wasn't just going to go to Alabama because I grew up an Alabama fan. I got recruited by Arkansas. I got recruited kind of all over the Southeast and really different spots in the country. And so I decided, you know, hey, I'm going to go visit all these places, kind of figure out what it's about, figure out where I want to go to school. And so the next big part of my story came one night, I think it was in the fall. I had a man knock on my door. It was a scheduled thing. It wasn't like as creepy as it sounds. And it was Nick Saban, right? Nick Saban came to our house for my in-home visit, and we had lasagna. And I'll never forget, he like gave my mom like a kiss, like on the lips. I was like, that's kind of weird, but you know. I mean, I guess it's like a Italian thing. I don't know. I was like, all right, whatever. Sure. You're Nick Saban. I guess you can pretty much get away with whatever. And anyway, but Nick Saban sat me down and he talked to me about the process, right? Which I know you guys, I don't want to sit up here and talk about Alabama the whole time, but I do want to share with you, I think, some of the reasons why I think Alabama was successful, what makes Coach Saban so successful. So I want to talk for about 3 minutes just on kind of the process and what Nick Saban really told me that night for the first time. And so he kind of walked me through, there's 5 main pillars of the Alabama football program. They're 5 words that are kind of what we base everything on. And they're commitment, discipline, effort, toughness, and pride. And that's kind of, he laid out this kind of roadmap of what he wanted Alabama to be and how we're going to do it. You know, he started with commitment, talking about how, you know, if you really want to enjoy your life, if you really want to be great at something, you have to commit everything you have to it. And kind of just got me fired up about doing that. And he talked about discipline. He talked about the discipline it was going to take, basically doing the thing you know you should do over and over and over and over every single day. You know, he had all these little tiny ways of developing discipline in us, of, whether it was not letting our hair cover the back of our jersey, or tucking in our shirts, just wearing suits on the road. He had all these little tiny rules that seemed probably annoying to a lot of guys, but they really developed discipline in us. I always say that I went to Alabama as a boy, but I came back as a man, because Coach Saban really doesn't get enough credit for the good job he does of kind of teaching men responsibility and understanding how to one day be better leaders and better fathers and better husbands, because he really taught that to me. And that effort, it's kind of an obvious one, but I think the thing that you hear Coach Saban talk about the most is doing the little things the right way, right? He always talks about the little things over and over. See, at Alabama, they believe that I'm really working hard to say they and not we. It's been a big adjustment. It's an SEC Network thing. I have to say they. But they talk about how, every football game basically comes down to 4 or 5 big plays. Like, you look back, generally, the game comes down to a few plays. And within that play, it normally comes down to like something really simple, like an assignment. Like, let's say the linebacker was supposed to be in the B gap and he was in the A gap and it was an 80-yard run. You go back and you look at the film, it was always about a little detail. And so the trick is about football is that you really don't know when the big plays are going to be in the game, right? They could be at any point in the game. And so you have to practice over and over doing these little things the right way until, they become kind of second nature to you. And then toughness. He talked a lot about toughness, of really kind of practically being coachable. And I think that's probably what I've seen more great players go down at this fourth pillar of being coachable. I've been around a lot of great players, but if you're not a coachable human being in anything you do, if you can't take criticism, then you're never really going to reach your full potential. That's one great thing is it doesn't matter who you are at Alabama, you're going to get coached really hard. And I think that Alabama obviously has a lot of great players, and that's a big reason why they're successful. But another reason is because they're really good at developing talent. And a reason for that is because they're going to coach these guys hard no matter who they are. And I always tell people when they go, big-time recruits, I tell them, be coachable. Don't think that you got it all figured out, because you'll never maximize your potential if you're not coachable. Particularly with the recruiting, the way it's all set up now, so many recruits come in with this mindset of like, hey, I got it all figured out. I'm the man, right? These guys don't even know what they're talking about. I'm about to come take the world by storm. And it almost takes a year sometime to kind of deprogram that out of these guys to understand that, hey, these coaches know a lot more than you do. You got to be coachable if you want to be great. And then the last thing is pride. That's probably the most important one. I'm going to talk about it for a few minutes in a second. But the pride is basically anything in life you do, you have to have a why. You have to have a reason why you do what you do. You have to have a purpose in your life. You can't just, you're never really going to be great if you just kind of set out to do these things, but you really don't have a purpose. I'll never forget the first day I got to Alabama, that kind of brings all these 5 things together, was a great example. The first day I got there, we had this thing called the 110 test. It was 110 yards. That was our test. We had 16 110-yard sprints. And depending on what it was 3 different groups. You had the skill players, the middle skill, which is kind of the linebackers and quarterbacks and tight ends, and you had the bigs, which is the O-line, D-line. So depending on which group you were in, you had a certain time you had to make. So it was 16 110-yard sprints with 40 seconds in between. So basically it was like a running clock of a minute, and you would run it, and I think our time was 17 seconds, so we'd have to run 100 yards in 70 seconds, and we'd break for 43, then we'd have to run back, 16 times. And so that was like, we knew the first day that was what was going to happen. They warned us. They said, your first day, you're going to have the 110 test. We're going to see how hard you guys work to get ready for this. So, I'm a hard worker. I was ready. I ran that thing, 3 or 4 times a week for months leading up. I was ready to run the 110 test. I was not going to embarrass myself on the first day. So I get there, and Scott Cochran, you guys probably know who that is. He's our strength coach. Great guy. I love Scott Cochran. You probably see him. He's a yeller kind of guy. Man, he's actually so much more than that. He is such a vital. I think the strength coach is the most underrated part of a program. If your strength coach is not great, then your program probably won't be great. It's just I don't have any idea who your strength coach is, honestly. I'm not saying that for that. I'm just saying, it's such an important part, because that guy has more contact with the players than almost anyone else, maybe other than the position coach. He deals with the players more. So Scott Cochran, he boarded us up in these buses, and he took us to the stadium. He took us to the stadium, and so here I am. We pull up to Bryant-Denny Stadium. I'd grown up going to some games there, and so I was excited. We go in. It was one of those July days that was like 130 degrees, and we go in the stadium, and I was pumped, but I quickly realized that in the stadium there's no wind, right, on those hot days, so it was even hotter inside the stadium. And it was really weird seeing the stadium. There was nobody in it. It was totally empty. It was just the players. So we get out there, and Coach Cochran says, hey, you guys know the drill. We're about to run 16 110-yard sprints. The only thing I didn't tell you is that anyone who bends over during the whole drill, the whole team will have to run another 110-yard sprint. And it won't count for anybody, right? So we get there, and everybody's, all right, no big deal. You can't bend over, right? That's no big deal. So the first 8, they go really well. Everyone, they're prepared. They get it. On number 9, some guy bends over. I mean, just real subtle, just kind of like one of these, right? Really a subtle thing. Coach Cochran said words I'll never forget. He said, well, I have to leave out some of the words, but he said that doesn't count, right? That doesn't count. That was the gist, at least, of what he said. And he said, that doesn't count, right? And so I was like, all right, that's fine. I can run 17. Surely that guy learned his lesson, right? And, we run maybe 2 more. Then we got somebody else bending over. And then by this point, people start to get mad, and yell. And they say, hey, I'm making my times. Why can't I bend over? I don't understand. What's the big deal, right? That day, we ended up running 28 110s. And I had never before thrown up from physical activity. But that streak ended that day because I was throwing up meals that I had like Thanksgiving 3 years ago on the ground. I looked down and I said, well, there's Mom's turkey. And, it was a wild experience. But the point of it was, it obviously doesn't really matter about running to bend over. That's not really a big deal, but it's a big deal because it was important for our program. And that's the standard we set, that we're not going to bend over. And that's why traditionally you don't see Alabama players bend over in games, because it's ingrained into them over and over. If you bend over, that rep does not count. And again, it seems like it wouldn't matter because if you still run the times, you make the times. But it's not about the results. It's about the process. That's what Nick Saban's always been about. All right, so I'm always a little long-winded. I'm sorry. But I got to tell you one more quick story. I talked about the why, about why I think that's important. I want to really quickly tell you. So growing up, I talked about my parents, Rex and Leslie Jones. They're great people. But they also ingrained in me, they took me to church. I went to a great Christian school. And when I was really young, I accepted Christ. I became a Christian and understood what I was doing and decided that, hey, for the rest of my life, I'm going to follow Christ. As I grew older, I really kind of started to fall in love with being an athlete. I love the way people looked at me. I love the way people treated me. I love the way that it made me feel when people talked to me a certain way. I really enjoyed, kind of being an athlete. And when I got to Alabama, it really became even worse because, as you guys probably know, football is everything in Alabama. People don't care about basketball. People don't care about anything but football. It's all about college football. And when you go there and become an Alabama football player, you're kind of a revered person in the community. And I really started to buy into this, and it kind of became my identity in life as this Alabama football player. And it kind of became sort of what I looked to for my satisfaction and my joy and my enjoyment and my contentment in life was this being an Alabama football player. And so, breeze through real fast because I don't have much time, but my first year I redshirted. My second year, I became a starter. And we went undefeated that whole season. And we played Tim Tebow in the SEC championship game. You guys might remember this is the game Tim Tebow cried. I love Tim Tebow, but I always like to remind him of that. And we beat him in the SEC championship game. It was a rematch. And we went on to play Texas in the national championship game, Colt McCoy in Texas, in Pasadena, California, in the Rose Bowl. And so we went out there all the way to Texas. And my whole life growing up, I'd always dreamed of getting to hold the Crystal Trophy. I'd always wanted to, y'all remember the Crystal Trophy, right? Now they got the weird, waffle cone deal. But I love the Crystal. Crystal Trophy, that's the best trophy in sports. It's Waterford Crystal, 35. I'm very familiar. I've held 3 of them now. So, we had, I'd always dreamt of being able to hold this trophy. I'd seen the best football game I ever saw as a kid was USC versus Texas. Vince Young versus Matt Leinart and Reggie Bush. And I saw Vince Young hold up that trophy and the confetti fall down on me. I was a freshman in high school. And I said, someday I'm going to do that. I'm going to hold that trophy. That's going to be me standing on that stage. And so if you know me, I'm a very strategic, analytical guy. That's the only reason I was good. I was a terrible athlete. But we won the game. We beat Texas 37-20. And so after the game, it's like mayhem. Everyone's in the stands. They're running around, hugging their family members, but not me. I'm like, I got to get a front row seat on the podium. So I get a front row spot on the podium. I'm right here. I'm dead center. Also, my mom had told me, if we win, make sure you're in all the pictures, right? So here I am in all the pictures, right front and center, right behind Coach Saban's head, kind of sticking my head up. And, because I wanted to hold that trophy. And so sure enough, Coach Saban holds the trophy, the captains hold the trophy. And if you know anything about, football and the way things are supposed to work, very rude and impolite. Here I am, a redshirt freshman, and I grab the football from the captains, right? Because I'm like, I am holding this trophy. I am not getting out of here without holding this thing. And so sure enough, I grabbed it, and, I kissed it. It was like, that's what I saw everybody else doing, so it sounded cool at the time. And I held it up in the air, and the confetti fell down on me. And I have an incredible just memory that is so vivid in my head right now of how that felt. Maybe you have a memory in your life where you feel like it was just yesterday of how it tasted, like how it felt, how I felt, how it looked, how it smelled. I can remember everything about that moment. It was almost like a pause in time for me. And it was really, really special and unique. And so I passed the trophy on, and I got back to my hotel room later on that night. It was a really fun night. Obviously we were celebrating, and I tried to go to sleep, and I couldn't go to sleep. And I thought, well, I must just be excited. A lot happened tonight. But I continued to try to go to sleep, and I could not get to sleep. And so finally, I got on my knees and I prayed, and I said, God, this should be the most exciting night of my life. But I just have this weird feeling inside that I can really only describe as emptiness. I really feel unsatisfied with my life. I kind of had this moment where I was sort of like, hey, what's next? Like, I just accomplished all the goals I wanted to accomplish in life. And I'm, 19 years old. Like, where do I go from here? And I felt so empty and unsatisfied. And over a long series of events, I kind of realized, what I had been doing, that I had really been living my life to glorify myself, that I'd kind of become this, football player who happened to be a Christian instead of a Christian who happened to play football. One of my favorite verses is John 6:35 says, I am the bread of life. He who comes to me will never hunger. He who believes in me will never thirst. I love that verse. I really, really believe that nothing can satisfy you but a relationship with Jesus Christ. That's a core belief of my life. I've known it to be true because for a long time I looked for that satisfaction in other things and I didn't find it. Last story before I take questions. A little bit later on, you guys might have heard this story, second or third hand, but they had this. We had this big recruiting day at Alabama, and our strategy at these recruiting days was we wanted to let the kids hold the trophies, right? We said, hey, maybe they'll commit to Alabama and make an emotional decision if we let them hold the trophy. So we had one of these trophies. We let the recruits hold it. So some of you might know where I'm going with this, but one of the recruits dropped the trophy on a marble floor, right? On a marble floor. Okay, so I'm in the building that day, and I was like the parent specialist, So what we did is we divided. This is a good recruiting tip. We divided them up into parents and kids. And then, the kids, kind of got the wild guys come in there, tell them how fun college is. And then you take guys like me, and we tell the parents how responsible we are. It always seemed to work really well. And, yeah, it's one of our secrets. And so, yeah, I was in the building that day, and I turned the corner, and I see this crystal trophy. I see it. Someone had dropped it on the ground, and it was not all the super glue in the world could put this thing back together, right? I mean, it is gone. And so the first thing I did, I know the cameras are on, but I'm going to say this anyway because I trust you guys. I bent over and I took a piece and put it in my pocket, right? I said, here I got a chance to have history on my nightstand, right? And later on, they sold those shards for like $100,000 to some donor who wanted to have the shards in his house. And but he didn't have all the pieces because I had one at my house. Y'all don't tell anybody that, all right? That's our secret. But after that happened, after I committed the only crime of my life, I really sat and I reflected for a second. I thought to myself, man, what a picture of exactly how I felt that night in 2009. It was that exact same trophy that I'd held that night, that it is so fragile that somebody dropped it on the ground and it broke into a million pieces. And that's how my life kind of felt that night. And maybe some of you guys have had that feeling about your life before where you look around and you realize that your life is sitting in a million pieces. And you say, how in the world did I get here? Well, I just want to encourage you, two things. First of all, nothing can satisfy you but Christ, but just have a why in your life. Have a purpose. Have a reason for getting up in the morning. Don't just go through the motions. Have a goal and objective. Really, at the end of the day, I believe that you just kind of have two choices in life. You can really either live your life to glorify yourself, or you can live your life to glorify the Lord, right? Or you can live your life to glorify and help other people. And so I've chosen to do the second, and I hope you do too. So here we go. I'm going to take questions. Woo Pig.
All right, I'm going to be Woo Pig. Yeah. Hey, how about that? All right, we've just got a few minutes. Barrett, since you are doing work for you're doing work for ESPN and you're doing work for the SEC Network, just talk about the game this weekend. Arkansas goes to Alabama. They're a 30-point favorite. Talk about the Arkansas program and what they're going to face this week.
Yeah, it's a tall task. I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. I think obviously a lot to say about Arkansas, and I like Brett Bielema a lot. We actually did a speaking engagement together in Tampa this past year. He's a great guy. I think the thing that I'm probably disappointed most about Arkansas when I look at just kind of who they are as a team is kind of the whole system is built around this kind of power run game of having this great offensive line and being able to run the ball. And I believe in football that you have to be who you are, and you got to do something well. You have to kind of have something in your hat like this is who we are and what we do well. And two things on that. First of all, they can't run the ball right now. I mean, when your whole thing is built on running the football and you can't run the football, it's trouble. And then also, I feel like they kind of go away from that sometimes. They kind of try to be this team who spreads it out and throws it 50 times a game. And I don't think it's ever going to work, at least in this system, because that's not how it's designed, right? It's designed to be this power, physical, running football team. And I think if they don't get back to that, and I know you say, well, it's tough to run the ball in the SEC. Well, that's true. But if you're built around that, and then you kind of abandon that and you try to become something you're not, I think it's just really difficult. The offensive line has been disappointing. It hasn't been very good this year. I think Frank Ragnow is a fantastic player. He's very good. I think he's had a great year even. But it's a tough group right now. And I just believe that if they can't run the ball effectively, they're never really going to be good under this regime because that's what this regime knows how to do and who they are.
Johnny?
Thank you. Can you talk about the April 27th, 2011 tornado and the Alabama football team's response? I was very impressed with that.
Yeah, thanks. That's a great one. Man, that was a tough time for Tuscaloosa and for our city. For those of you who don't know, we had a huge tornado come through Tuscaloosa, and our long snapper was actually got involved in it and was swept up in the tornado and with his girlfriend. His girlfriend died, and it was a very tough time. I had several classmates who died who I was in classes with, and it was an unbelievable sight. I don't know if any of you guys have ever seen a tornado. I know that tornadoes are pretty common around here, but it was. I've never seen anything like it. I was an idiot, and I got up on the top of my building. There was a roof, and I watched the whole thing come through the city, which my mom yelled at me for, of course. But I wanted to see this thing, and it was a mile wide, coming through Tuscaloosa. I'd never seen anything like it, and kind of life sort of stopped for like, about a week there. And I remember Coach Saban held a meeting and said, hey, guys, football's off for a while. Don't worry about that. I want you guys to get out in the community. I want you to help figure out a way where you can give back. And Coach Saban did a great job of that. He actually built, I think, 16 houses for people who lost their homes. So it was a unique time. I really do think it brought us together as a team. It was a really special year. It was probably the best team we ever had, was that 2011 team. Really a good football team. But it was definitely a different feel. I remember, kind of getting back in the stadium because, Tuscaloosa is only about 100,000 people. So the stadium's bigger than the whole town. And I remember that first Saturday back, just kind of having everybody back there. It really was special and emotional. And I'm not really an emotional guy, but it makes me a little emotional thinking about it just because I saw a lot of bizarre things, but also a lot of good people, a lot of people coming together in a unique way that I'd really never seen before.
Last one real quick. Bob?
Yeah. Do you have any Nick Saban's funny stories? And also, real quick, could you touch on your encounter with A.J. McCarron?
Oh, yeah. I'm just glad that was the second question, not the first. That's always the first question I get, which is embarrassing, is, why did you shove A.J.?
For those who don't know, you're referring to the national championship.
Correct, and against Notre Dame, which, I'm going to try not to get worked up about it, which is tough. But, it kind of makes me mad that the way people ask the question is, and you actually asked it pretty well, but people say, why did you shove A.J.? Which I think the question should be, why did A.J. get in my face, right? That's the way I saw it. I just think the quarterbacks kind of get a pass. It was just a simple miscommunication, but I think there was definitely underneath in my core there some kind of underlying feelings of like, hey, AJ, we're up 42-14. your jersey, man, looks really clean. Like you hadn't been hit all night. You know, you're throwing for 3 touchdown passes. You know, your girlfriend's getting talked about on the air. You know, and you know we're down here dying for you, man, sweating in the trenches and just working really hard. And just how about some appreciation, you know? But I'm kidding. It was no big deal between us, but it definitely blew up. And Coach Saban, I'll say this. I have a lot of Coach Saban stories, many of which I can't tell. But one funny story, I'd say my most recent story about Coach Saban is we played golf together not too long ago, and he's a pretty good golfer. And so, you know, as you can imagine, he's very competitive. First of all, he's fun to be around. I think I could talk about him for a long time, but a lot of people think he's miserable, like he's really this unhappy guy who just hates life, which I think sometimes like the media portrays him as that, just kind of like for fun. But he loves the grind. He loves grinding. He enjoys it, but he loves teaching. He loves teaching the guys. Like his most happy times are at practice. Like he skips around at practice after the media leaves, of course, and is so happy and cheerful. But not too long ago, we went and played golf, and so, you know, Coach Saban, you know, asked me if I played much, you know, and I mean, you know, I'll be honest, I kind of sandbagged, and I was like, oh, yeah, I play every once in a while, you know, and so he was like, all right, well, you know, see if you can beat me, like, we'll play straight up, and I was like, all right, well, you're probably going to beat me, but we'll see, you know, and I play a good amount of golf, so I went out there, and, you know, I started playing a few holes, and Coach Saban kind of started looking at me, and he was like, you play some golf, don't you, you know, and he got mad, you know, he hates losing, he hates losing so much, and I started, you know, draining some putts, you know, and I ended up beating him that day, and you know, he was not happy about it. He did not appreciate my attempt at kind of sandbagging him a little bit, and but I had a great time, so I don't know what he's complaining about. Well, hey, I had a blast with you guys. Sorry I talked too long, didn't leave enough time for questions, but hey, you guys are a great crowd, and good luck to you all in the future. See y'all.
Barrett Jones, everybody. Great job, Barrett. Awesome, buddy. All right, everybody. We'll see you next week. Bob Stoops, thanks for being here.
Thanks for being here. Yeah, absolutely. I never kissed Nick, but since he kissed her, I kissed her. Good to meet him.
Yeah, good job, Rex.
Tommy said you're in the studio, I think, Thursday day. Yeah, thank you.
That's good. Here. We'll give you pictures right here. Don't get too far behind. Don't go too far back. Don't go too far back there. If they have time, if you want to get them, we can get them up here in front of everybody. If you want to do that, yeah. Thanks, Steve. Guys, look. Yeah, I want you to get in line and get your picture made. Yeah, let's go ahead and get these high school guys first. All right, guys, get on in and get your picture.
What's up, man? Congratulations.
Yeah, hop in.
I got the.
Nice of you bringing your appreciate it.
See you, man. You good? You already got it? All right, guys. Congratulations. Hey, working hard.
I'm gonna put it in. I'm gonna put it in.
Is that you guys? Have the rest of the year.
I'm here thinking about it while I'm speaking. Come on, get in here.